everybody, what's up and welcome back to Adobe Live. I'm here with the talented and lovely James Bonanno. James, thank you for joining us here on Adobe Live.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Claudia. I'm so excited to be back here on Adobe Live and be in the chair on the editing end. It's been a little while since I've been back here, but very, very excited to be here, and especially with you, Claudia. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Fantastic. So for those of you who do not know James has been here with us at Adobe Live many times, both as a guest and a host. He's a professional filmmaker and photographer, produces very excited content. I'm a fan. I follow him all over on the internet. And today he's here with us to talk in particular about Instagram Reels. James is going to show us how to create engaging Instagram Reels. We're going to work on Premiere. He's going to show us how to organize, edit your clips, how to source audio, edit audio, maybe create some audio if we have some time as well. And then we're going to jump into Photoshop Beta to learn how to expand your footage as well to join different platforms. The content, I had a little bit of a sneak peek here behind the scenes, and the content for today's stream is his latest trip in Iceland. And
Yes.
Actually, as I said, I follow you on Instagram, James. So why don't you show us your beautiful Instagram page with all your amazing photo? It's really, really exciting. I think it's called Leave the Map.
Yes. So that was such a great intro, Claudia. Thank you so much. And man, do we have a lot to talk about in an hour and a half. I'm very excited to dive into that. But before we get started, here's just a little bit about me and sort of my career, my work. For those that don't know, my wife Anna and I have a travel company called Leave the Map, and this is where we share the most of our travel work whenever we're traveling abroad or domestically. And so we recently just got back from a trip from Iceland. I've been on here teaching travel films from Bora Bora and sort of all over the world. So very, very exciting stuff. And today is going to be like brand new footage that I really haven't even touched. So it's going to be brand new to everyone watching. So this is our Instagram. If you're not following us, give us a follow, shoot us a DM, let me know that you are on the stream. And if you have any other professional questions, we also have a YouTube channel. So that's Leave the Map as well. And a lot of this is just more of the longer form content of the travel films that we create. I tend to I want to post on here more. It takes a lot of time, as anyone who is a YouTuber knows. So I've been a little bit behind. As you can see, about 6 months ago was my last video, but hoping to change that in the future. And then here's our website. So if you want to learn more about specific tips of places that we've been, we have a blog post here, a blog page with all of our different destinations, a little about page, and then our portfolio with a ton of our different client work and all the good stuff. So you can find
You guys are
me.
busy.
We are certainly busy, and it's taken a long time to get the page to look like this. So today, I think it's good to have a little context as to like the business side of how we operate and how we do things. But today is really all about editing some of the reels that we will post on our Instagram, some of the short form content that we'll share to YouTube and to all the socials, and just have fun inside of Premiere, get a little inside look at my workflow, tips and tricks. And then I want to hop into Photoshop Beta a little bit. I know we want to talk about Firefly, so I want to show you the power of Generative Fill using vertical video and try to incorporate that into our video somehow today. So
And before we get started, James, yes, there is so much to do, and time goes always fast when we have fun here at Adobe Live.
It really does.
I just want to say a quick hello to the chat and welcome everybody here and do a little bit of a housekeeping. Remember to watch us on Adobe Live YouTube channel or on Behance. The chat that we're looking at the moment is on Behance, but we have our lovely mods. They're able to bring question forward. So use this time here together live at Adobe Live to ask a question. I'll be monitoring the chat and make sure that your questions get to James. So if you have any insight on what it makes and how, maybe you just want to see something a little bit slower, or you want us to go over again a particular workflow, please don't be shy. We're here to learn together, and I love to see this question coming through in the chat. So make sure to use this time to have fun together with us. And given that, I want to say a quick hello to Wade Acuff in the chat, our mod today, and Katerina, Garrett, Biola, Umacron. Thank you so much. This lovely family here at Adobe Live. Let us know as usual, where are you tuning in from? I'm currently streaming from Manchester, UK. James, where are you at today?
I am in New Jersey. So we're on the East Coast, and beautiful summer day here. So all around the world, we have people coming from everywhere. What is up, everyone? I am so excited to get started.
Love these international communities. Pretty cool. So let's get started. Let's see this never seen before footage.
Awesome. I know, never seen before footage makes it sound like it's super epic. And some of it is epic. Some of it is, we'll let you decide in the chat. So I want to try to start, not super basic, but I want to just sort of start with my process and my organization. I know that can be not the most exciting thing to talk about, but we'll breeze through it pretty quickly because it's something I've talked about on here before. But I will say it is super, super important for being a professional editor to have some sort of structure, to have organization in your workflow. So I'm not going to open up a new project file, but if you are following me along at home, feel free to do so. And Premiere has, as those of us that use it often, has all these different workspace panels. Excuse me, my voice is cracking a lot today. I'm not sure why, but that'll happen from time to time. So I'm going to start inside of Assembly. And the reason I like to start with Assembly is because I have this whole project bin window up where I can organize all of my footage and my clips in the most efficient way. Okay, so basically all I'm going to do here is just zoom in on this down here with this bar so we can see what I'm working with. It's a pretty simple little bin, right? I have my sequences, I have my footage, and we're going to talk about all the different B-roll that I shot over the course of like a 10-day trip to Iceland, and then also incorporate maybe some Adobe stock as well if we want to supplement some of the footage that I already got. Okay, and then underneath footage, I have my audio broken into music, sound effects, and voiceover. I did not record any voiceover for this, but if I had, this is where that would live. Our graphics. Inside of graphics, I just like to have, different renders. Maybe there's titles. There's some motion graphics templates, which we're going to get into later in the stream. And then down here, I have my color folder, and that's essentially for adjustment layers to color grade my footage. So you have your color correction, then you might want to put a LUT, a creative color LUT on top of that. And time permitting, we're going to hopefully get to that before we export our final video. Okay, so the reason I like to just keep things this organized is it's a workflow. It keeps every project consistent. So I have this exact bin and folder structure for my clients that hire me to do this professionally and for my own personal work. So I know exactly what I'm getting into when I'm opening up each project. Okay.
And saves time. Like I think that once you get into these mood of sweeping through your layers, sometimes it's just having the same. I don't know if it's the same for you, but do you keep your track always in the same order in your projects? Like what goes above, what goes below?
Kind of, yeah. It sort of depends. Like I think this usually stays the same right here. In terms of the tracks, I try to keep like drafts in order. So let's say I'm creating a first draft of a project and I send that for review. I will always go in here and duplicate this. So like this is already pre-built. So I created this to show you on the stream today, and then I duplicated this version, and then I just created another one, which is what we're going to be editing from scratch. So the reason I like to do that is if a client has feedback and they like version 1, all of a sudden when we've edited version 5, we're not being destructive with editing on top of that first version. We're giving ourselves the option the same way you would with layers in Photoshop or Illustrator.
Amazing. Super cool.
Yeah, so that is the organization process. Again, if you're very brand new to Premiere Pro, to actually get all of the footage and all the goodiness inside of Premiere, you're going to go up here, File, Import, or your hotkey is going to either be Control-I or Command-I on the keyboard, and then you're just going to import everything in there. So you can also keep these folders on your hard drive in the same order, and then you can just drag those folders in. Again, it's totally preference, but over the years of doing it, this is the way that I like to.
And just a very, very basic question, because I know that here, James, as you know, we got all different levels. And let us know in the chat if you're a beginner, if you used Premiere before, so we know how to dive in. Sometimes little things that also talking about the workspace is super useful because sometimes people do open Premiere, but they don't see what you see in terms of workspace.
All right.
So can you tell us? Sorry for diverting.
No, not at all. That's what we're here for. Again, like there's no level that we're not going to teach here. If people are more advanced, I'd love to hear that. If you're, just tuning in and you're opening Premiere for the first time, I'm going to show you how to do that real quick. So you open Premiere, you're going to go to File, New Project. Okay. And your project window is going to look something like this. This is actually sort of generated, I believe, from Creative Cloud as like sample footage. excuse me. And here's the main things that you want to know. Okay, so your project name is going to come up on the top left-hand corner. So you would name this something like Adobe Live. And another little naming convention that I like to sort of keep consistent is every project would have a date to it. So today is the 7th of July in 2023, so that I can always go back and reference when I created this, when I started the project. It just helps to have some reference. Again, total preference there. And then your project location is extremely important. So you're going to choose the location, and the location of where all your footage is coming from is either going to be on your local desktop, your computer, or in my case, I like to edit off of solid state drives. They're just a little bit quicker. I don't like to clog my computer with all of my terabytes of footage. So what I do is I actually organize my hard drive by the month. So if we look at columns here, you can see July. And then inside July, I have, again, the same date. And then I have iPhone footage. I have stock footage. I have all my footage in here. And this is how you'd import that footage. And you want to make sure that it's inside of that folder, or else you won't be able to actually find your media. It's something that you have to mess up to really understand. Okay. And then you'll just come to me here and create. We're going to actually name this something different because it already exists. We're just going to go V2 and created. Okay. And your bin here is empty. We're going to go over here to reset to set saved layout. We're just going to get rid of this. And this is essentially what your window would look like if you're in the editing panel. This is what it looks like right here. And you wouldn't see anything. Ignore the red. That's just a missing link, like I said. And now we're ready to sort of dive in and start editing from scratch. Okay. So what I'm going to do first, Claudia, how are we doing? Any questions before I dive
we have
into...
Michelle. Michelle was telling us that she's a beginner in Premiere Pro.
Okay.
She's done some basic edits, but this video is coming right on time because she's been to the Coldplay. She's been shooting some videos Saturday.
Sweet.
And she want to turn it into a reel for Insta. So we're ready. We're ready for it, James.
All right, Michelle, I'm talking to you. We're doing it. Okay, so before we actually look at this project and start creating our own, I'm going to show you how to create a sequence. Okay, so that's the most important thing when you're starting in Premiere. So you have all your footage, you have everything. I'm going to move this workspace. And again, like, don't feel scared if you've never opened it. Don't feel scared to click around on these workspaces and all of a sudden the whole layout changes. It can be a little bit of like a mind twister if you're not used to it. And if you get confused, all you got to do is just go reset to saved layout, and you're going to go back to whatever the initial layout was. I like to go to assembly to start. Okay.
That's why I asked James, to be fair. Like, I use Premiere now and I'm quite flexible with it. But when I started, I had my videographer, the Axel, the person that helped me out, that like he was showing me around, and I was like, oh, I broke everything, everything disappeared. I lost everything. So I used to panic so much. And I was like, please share with everybody that it's normal to panic. There is so much going on in Premiere.
It really
is.
You
feel, yeah.
And then like I have to just tell this one quick story. Anna is a Photoshop wizard and design wizard, but she's getting better at using video. I'm kind of helping her along the way. And I was away for something, and I was like, I think you have this handled, like you could figure it out. And she got so confused on this exact thing, on the workspace being all over the place, that she just gave up.
She's like,
I need you.
I canceled.
I need you to edit this. I'm like, you just have to reset the workspace. So it happens to the most professional people. It's totally normal. Okay, so Michelle and team and everyone watching, Command N or right click is, or right here if you don't want the shortcut, is File, New, Sequence. Okay, so that's what your sequence is that we're looking at right down here. All right, and inside of Premiere, you have a lot of sequence presets. I'm gonna go into settings to make sure that I set this the way I want it. The typical frame size is 1920 by 1080. That's a 16:9 format, which is great for horizontal landscape video for YouTube, website, all those things. But today we're talking about Instagram Reels. And for those of us that are not aware of the format, it's the opposite. So we're going 9 by 16. So the only thing I'm going to do is go 1080 by 1920 and flip that aspect ratio. So now everything I'm going to be editing is inside of that 9 by 16 window. My time code, I like to edit in 2997, like 30 frames per second, or 24, depending on the project. And then I'm going to go down here to my sequence name, and we're going to call this Iceland Adobe Live. It's always hard to type on a stream. All of a sudden, I'm like, how do I type?
Well,
we're
don't worry, to me happens all the time on and off stream.
right.
So
You're
I'm
like, ah.
dyslexic, so make the
Oh my,
most.
yeah, there you go. Okay. All right. So we're going to call this version 1, all right, to just get started. Okay. So down here, we have our sequence created and there's nothing in here. Great. That's what we want. Okay. So I'm going to drag this into my sequences and you'll notice inside here, I have drafts, nests, and selects. The promo is just for what I created for this stream. So I'm going to put this into drafts. Okay. I'm just going to move this. And now that we're done with sort of the assembly portion, this is just where I like to name things. I'm going to go to my workspace. Again, we're not going to break it. And I'm going to go into my edit window. That is driving me crazy that I have missing link there. We're going to go to our drafts. We have this open. Okay, so here is the process that I begin pulling selects. Okay, so this is the process that I do on virtually every single project where I go through all the footage that I have and I go through as quickly as I can to pull the best moments that I think I'm going to want to use, might not. And then what I do is from that point, I start to build the cut. And we're going to go into how I do that right now. All right, so the way we're going to do that is I've already created a selects sequence somewhere in here and I have my selects folder. So we're going to double click that. Okay, and I've already started doing this. So we're just going to continue to add on and I'm going to show you the process of how I do it. So I'm going to drag my timeline up here. And this is something known as pancake editing. There's a lot of different names like stacked editing in the video world. But basically what I like to do is take my cut that I'm going to be referencing and I'm going to drag this. You'll notice if I drag my mouse, there's a bunch of purple things that come up. Don't let this intimidate you again, because it can. And you're going to drag it all the way to the bottom of this little bar until you see that small purple bar. And what this is going to do is it's going to stack your timeline on top of each other. And you'll see why this is so helpful in a minute. But basically, all of your selects are going to live above your cut. So rather than, let's say, copying and pasting everything down here, which can get a little bit unruly once you have all the different assets in your video, you can just drag and drop them directly down here. Okay. And we're going to keep existing settings. So it's a very efficient way of editing, and I promise you, it will speed up your workflow tremendously if you start kind of working in this way.
Very neat. I actually had a question myself.
Please.
In terms of quantity of footage. So for example, we're talking about my recent trip. I have so much footage and I just end up like refusing to go through it because of the quantity. Do you have any like way in which you like pick, or do you go through your mobile to your cameras and decide like how much do you keep? Of course, depending on the project, but roughly. Do you have any method in this madness?
It is madness. It sure is madness. I have a couple of thoughts on that. I think my first big thought on that is after years of shooting, you start to get a little bit more like dialed of what you want to shoot. So I used to, when I was first starting out, I shot everything. I had so much footage that just sort of lives on a hard drive right now and is basically collecting hard drive dust or whatever we call that. But now I think I've been more refined, so I know what I'm looking for. I have a little bit more of a plan going into a project. So I'm shooting a little bit less, but the clips are a little bit more, each clip is usable. So I'll go through and like delete the ones that I definitely know don't work. So that's like sort of the first part. The second part is, again, like speed of going through everything. So what I like to do here inside the B-roll, I have my cinema camera, which I didn't shoot as much on, but I know what I shot. So if you're an editor that is taking over somebody else's project, it's a little more difficult. But if you shot it, like Claudia, for you, you know everything you got, and your brain might just be like, oh, I have to go to this drone clip and start there. So the workflow tends to sort of just change each time, depending on what you're creating. But I will say, the first thing I do is I just start kind of cruising through my clips, and rather than like play the whole clip, I just use my scrubber here and I go to a point where I'm like, okay, cool. I like this little rack focus, cute little sheep. And then I'm just going to go I on my keyboard and then O when it racks. I think he's sleeping standing up, which is pretty funny. O, and now I've created an in and out point of that select. And then what I'm going to do down here, I've labeled these, which I'll show you how to do in a second here, the color of which camera it was on. So I know when I'm actually cutting, like, oh, this is an iPhone, this is a drone, this is stock footage, all that stuff.
Amazing.
So what I'll do here is, rather than like dragging everything in, I'm going to just press comma on my keyboard And that is automatically a hotkey for putting everything down here. So even though I have no audio on this, I can come down here, press Command L, and just remove the audio separately. Did that answer your question, Claudia?
Absolutely, yes. I think the beginning, do not just I get overexcited when I go like, oh, look at this, look at that. Although I started a tiny bit to take less pictures, especially like of Italy. Every time I'm on the boat, I'm like taking pictures of the same place over and over again. I'm like, do I really need that seagull? Do I really need another seagull?
Oh yeah.
Sorry.
We've all been there. It's totally okay. I get it. I still do it. So
we got Jerry Cantu saying, I'm a super beginner with Premiere Pro, so all this information is very useful to me. Great. And Mohammed Sharaz saying, what is a B-roll?
Great. Yeah, great question. Again, keep these questions coming, guys. Beginner, I like to be able to start here. So B-roll. So in any project that you're creating, you're going to have your A roll and you're going to have your B roll. And so A roll is, for most cases, a typical video interview footage or a talking head or your primary like A camera. So the bulk of the story. B roll is anything that is going to complement that story. And in this case, like our A roll and B roll are all sort of the same because there is no talking head. There's not really the story is just that we were in Iceland. I'm not sitting here dictating it. If I filmed myself saying, all right, like we went on this amazing trip to Iceland, like here's what we saw, that clip would be considered A roll. And then all this would be considered B roll. Does that make sense?
Would you say perhaps the B roll is like visual fillers, contextual visual fillers?
That's a great way to put it. Absolutely. Yeah. So if I'm explaining something about this office that I'm in and I'm saying, oh, behind me on the wall, I have this, this, and this, the fillers would be me shooting the footage of inserts of what's in the office. So if it's this microphone, if it's the wall, if it's this light, and then overlaying that on top of our voice underneath that. So that's the A roll and then B roll. And then inside of B roll, again, all I have is just the different cameras that I shot that B roll on. And that's just personal preference of, certain things. Like if we dive into some of the drone shots here, the drone shots in Iceland give you a significantly different perspective than something from, let's say, our iPhone, but they both serve a purpose,
Amazing. And a very silly question before we dive back into the workflow. Are we going to see any of the cute little birds? I don't know what they're called.
Yes. Oh my God. The puffins. Do you want to see them?
Yes.
Yeah. Let's just skip the stream and just go right to the puffins.
let's just make everything about the puffins, please.
All right. So let's see. We have the puffins. We ended up, let's see what I have them on. I believe
I've seen some amazing picture. Again, guys, like go and check their Instagram. It's absolutely amazing. I just really enjoy seeing all your travel picture. I was just there
thank you,
sharing it like for planning my next trip and screenshotting it. So
it is such an incredible country. It's our second time. We went a couple of years ago when the volcano first was erupting, and then we left, and a week later the volcano started erupting again. So we were there at a beautiful time of the year because we were able to see these birds nesting and have the midnight sun and all these things, but we missed the volcano by like a week, which is crazy. So here is actually, I'll just show you how to do this from scratch. So this is my Canon R5 bin. So that's my camera that I was shooting a couple of these clips on. I was trying to shoot as much as I could on my cinema camera and my phone, but in certain cases, like with these birds, I really wanted to make sure I had a couple of clips to use for this reel. Okay, so I'm gonna double click here. Here are our puffins, but oh, James, they're shot upside down or sideways. What are we gonna do about that? I'll tell you what we're gonna do about that. We are going to drag this into our timeline. Okay, so comma right there. This now brings our clip in, and we don't really see it because our sequence is set to 9:16, but the clip that I shot was also shot at 9:16, but it was imported horizontally. So a little confusing. Don't worry about it. All we're gonna do is flip this. Okay, so I'm gonna come in here to my workspace. We're gonna go to edit. And then up here in the effects controls panel, again, if you're new to this, don't worry, slow me down, pause it as many times as you want. Effects controls, these are your motion tools. So this is how you can scale things up, switch the position, lower the opacity. This is how you actually animate inside of Premiere Pro using these this little stopwatch through keyframes. But all we're gonna do is just turn this down to 50%, and we're gonna rotate it -90 degrees. And now we see our bird. Okay, and the reason I move that to 50% is because we shot shot this clip in 4K, so twice the size of our 9:16 format here, which is 50% smaller than what we need. So at 100%, we're really scaled in. All right, so here's our puffins.
We have a question from Mohammed, but I mean, you already replied. I just want to make sure that it's clear for him as well. So the cropping is simply resizing it. It will automatically crop it because it just whatever it shows in the sequence format that you. Okay, perfect.
Correct. Yes. And if you don't want to go up here and do it, like let's say you're just doing your thing, you can right click in here and just go set to frame size. And now what this will do is it'll set it to the frame size, and then you'll just kind of have to adjust it. It should usually do it like right on, but sometimes it doesn't. So it's just a little wonky to get those things set. So that's the first thing that I'm doing here is I'm going through my footage. Let me just get in here. I'm going to try to talk as we go. So let's take where do we want to start here? Let me first
Everybody's so excited about the puffin, by the way. I'm so glad because I was feeling really selfish to request the puffin.
No, puffins were so cool. And I was so bummed because so we travel with a bunch of our different camera gear and our lenses. And the one lens we had is like a 2x adapter. So we were able to get 400 millimeter focal length, which is really pretty close to these puffins, but it's not close enough if we couldn't get right up to them. And so the closest we got was on that spot that you saw that clip, which we'll go back to. And Anna's like, we need to get closer. Like, I don't think we can. So here's what
looking from your Instagram, it looked like you guys were pretty close. So I would have never known all these behind the scene trouble. And by the way, leave the map Instagram and leave the map to see actually what I'm talking about and the amazing picture they've taken.
I have one up here real quick, and then we're gonna dive into this because I think
is the one with the gray background on the rock.
It's this one right here. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh.
So this is the power of megapixels in a camera. If we're gonna nerd out for a second, we scale that in a lot, and it still looks pretty good, I think. And then there's a couple other ones. So they're so cute. They're so cute. All right, so let me just show you real quick what I started doing, and then we're going to do sort of like an epic, hopefully like 30-40 minute long edit here. And again, keep these questions rolling as I'm going. I'm going to try not to get too distracted here. All right, so this is just what I started with before, just to give us something to go off of, and you can kind of see the pacing. That was just a fun little, this is actually inside of Premiere Pro, which we can look at as well. So that was just like very quickly put together based on clips that I had and a theme that I was going for. And the reason I wanted to start there and then start from scratch is I'm not a huge fan of the music. I don't think it necessarily fits Iceland. I don't know if anyone in the chat would agree or disagree. So I wanted to share a couple of tracks that I like and maybe get the chat's input of which one they want me to start with. A big portion of my workflow starts with, especially in this case with a reel, starts with what music do I think is going to like give the most punch or have the most impact, and then we can start to edit clips based on the timing of that music. Does that sound good?
Amazing, super excited. I was actually looking if there is any way of doing like a quick poll online.
Yeah,
in the meantime for the music.
Let's try. All right, so let's see which one I have one that I really like, which is kind of cool. Let me pull it up here. Iceland draft. Let's open these a little for the stream. Okay, so here's one. I'm gonna play this back. I'm gonna have play two right here. This is the first one I'm thinking of. Let me turn it down a little bit so I don't blow everyone's ears out. Okay, so very epic kind of, I think I could see footage working really well from Iceland in a song like that. So that's option one, okay? We'll call that one option one. All right, and we'll do option two right now. Okay, sounds very like Chef's Table. Has anyone ever watched that show?
really
Sounds similar.
building momentum until
Building the
the final.
momentum.
Yes.
So that's an option that I like, and let's find another one in here that we can throw in that's different, and see. What do you think, Claudia? Are you into either one of
I'm loving the
those?
first one, to
Okay,
be fair, because I think it
cool,
really draws and speaks for the cost
cool.
and the dramatic feel of the cost. And I don't know if you added like running with a waterfall as well, but it went
Yeah,
really well together. I think they were
yeah,
merging really nicely.
awesome. I like this one too a lot. That's kind of my favorite right now. Let's see. All
Welcome
right.
back, everybody. And thank you so much for hanging on with us all this time. I'm so excited to be back here with the one and only James Bonanno. James, the puffin have been waiting for us alongside the chat.
The puffin are I just imagine them like so cute. Like, all right, what are you gonna make me look like?
Yes, they were just very curious and waiting alongside all these amazing people here at Adobe Live. Again, if you join us just right now, don't forget that we're live. You can ask questions, and that's another reason why these little hiccups happen behind the scene. But
They
we're
do.
back and we're super excited, James, to keep cracking on this amazing Engage Instagram story. We've been taking some of the wonderful, never seen before footage from Anna's and James' trip to Iceland. We have so much nature. We were picking music. We actually, right before cutting off, we were just selecting the music. We went for a lovely dramatic tune. And James, I'm going to leave it up to you to keep
All
working on
right.
this.
Man, Claudia, I feel like you need to just intro me wherever I go. I just feel so much cooler. You're like, all right, the one and only. Yeah. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, all right. Yeah. So welcome back, everyone. We were starting to pick the music, which we have done. What I like to do is just slow down a little bit. And as I'm going through this edit, hit on a couple things that if you're a beginner, you may or may not know. And I think they're just good points to have. We're here to learn Premiere. We're here to learn video editing on any level. And I want to make sure that we're doing that for everyone. Okay. So again, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go into my bins. So these are my selects. I'm still in the process of creating the selects since I didn't do all of them. And what I'm going to do is switch from this view, which is my list view. I like to work in icon view because what it does is it allows me to then scroll through this and know, okay, like this actually looks like a usable clip. Let me double click this and again, go to I, and then I'm going to press space, fast forward. J just goes back. So I'm just doing this very quick. Imagine this is like the rough draft. You're getting your ideas down. You know that they're not going to be final, but they're going to be sort of what you start with. Okay, so O, and then we're going to come in here. And let's say I want to now drag this clip in between these two clips without overwriting them. I'm pressing plus on my keyboard. I'm going to press Command. And if I hold down Command, you'll notice that this little bar comes up. And this allows me to drop this in and then shift everything else over. So it's a really powerful tool to make sure that you could almost start building your template and your timeline out here in your selects instead of just having them all like willy-nilly spaced out all over the place. Willy-nilly, who says that? I don't even, what is that? All right. So this is just, again, this is my process. I'm going to keep going through here, find clips that I like. And the reason this looks so flat, this is shot in a log color profile. So this bin here is shot on my Canon C70. So that's a cinema camera specifically for projects like this and some of my bigger client work. And log, for those that don't understand what log is, it's just basically a flat color profile that allows you to have the most dynamic range, the most flexibility of color grading. Okay, so you are able to color grade this to your desired look and effect. And there's not much saturation in this. There's not much contrast in it. That's all the stuff that you would add to that clip once you get into the color correction phase.
Amazing. We have
Does that
some
make sense?
question about colors, but I knew that you were gonna get there in the right time. So there were question up in the chat now. Everybody's having coffee and chocolate. We gave everybody time to get a tea,
Yeah,
coffee,
perfect.
chocolate. Where is my coffee, please?
Yeah, I need that. That sounds
yes.
great.
But yeah, there was a question. I'm just trying to go up the chat. I believe it was Mohammed asking about how can you color a clip. But Mohammed, I think we're just about to dive into that.
Yeah, Mohammed, if I do not get to that before like the last 10 minutes, let's definitely talk about that, because that's something that especially with these clips, I want to maybe take a crack at coloring them for you. Okay, so we've gone through, I've pulled my selects for that camera. I'm just going to come down here and go to label. We're going to label this like a magenta color, so I know that those are from my cinema camera. These are all labeled from the drone. This is going to be from the R5. Again, I shot this a little less like log profile. Let's go back to that bin and find more of the puffins, because I know I want to use those. I also think I have some cute clips of some other birds that have some audio to them. So we're just going to drag this in. We have this really incredibly like majestic horse. This was insane. We just stumbled upon them just on the cliff. It felt like we were at the edge of the world, up on the northernmost part of the country. It was just one of those moments that, it's kind of a once in a lifetime deal.
And that's how close you were actually to the horses?
Yeah. So quick little antidote. There was a fence, like an electric fence. I do not advise anyone to do this. And I was just so in the moment. I wanted to capture the best video, and we had some amazing photos. And right at the end, as this horse is coming towards the camera, my like pinky hit this electric fence and shot me back. So I was okay.
Well, you're here with us, and we're really thankful.
I'm here, and we got a really cool clip. So I would just say, be careful.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's not too many clips in here that I feel like I would use, but I'm gonna just grab these anyway. We're gonna come in here. We're gonna go set to frame size, and then we're gonna come to our effects controls. And we're gonna go 50% and -90. All right. Okay, so we got those. We're going to label these. And again, if I wasn't really talking through this, like your selects process could be very quick. It's a great time to throw some music on in the background, scrub through your clips. If there's audio in there that you want to use, that's a good time for it as well. This is a really cool clip of Anna in this waterfall I definitely want to use. So I'm going to drag this in, and I'm going to do the same thing. Plus on my keyboard, minus just kind of helps me see things a little better. We're going to go 50 on the scale and -90 on our rotation there. And we're just going to label this the same. All right. So I think we're in pretty good shape now for like enough to at least get us going. All right. So I'm just going to keep these here. All right. And we're good to go. Okay. So here is the song for those that kind of got booted out before. This is our track, and I've started to cut. What I was telling Claudia is I like to visualize like what the first clip should be, what's going to be a nice catchy opener. And I think with this epic music, I really want to have a drone shot just pop us off real quick. So here's what I have so far. And actually, we can see here on our clip that the music doesn't really start till we get to here. So all I'm doing is just dragging this out, and I'm dragging this all the way in. So we start right on there. I think a big point for engaging Instagram Reels, especially social media, is that action has to start like right away. And this might not even be the clip we end up deciding on, but I think it's a good place to start and then get into the edit. So what I like about that is I can build a little sound design on top of that. So a very good waterfall sound in the background to just add some of that diegetic sound. So I like that clip. I'm always trying to source clips. If I didn't record the audio, source clips that you could imagine what the audio would sound like, so that you're continuing to build the sound design. That's a extremely overlooked part of filmmaking that is arguably more important than the visuals themselves, because it really dictates the story in a different way. And you can get really creative with the sound design as well. So depending on time, we might try to add some of that. All right, Claudia, how are we doing?
Very well. Like I don't want to interrupt you because I'm afraid like you press play and I talk over the music.
Okay,
And
no,
it's
you're good.
so
I just
amazing. Oh, I love it. I just don't want to
cool.
interrupt you. There is a question that I saw coming though, because you are so flexible and so fast. And I know that you talking and editing and probably you're after speed, if not even less of what usually edit. But we have a question from Michelle asking, how do you color code the clips in the timeline? So if you don't mind just slowly showing us that,
Yeah,
because it's cool.
color code, right? Not color correct. Just like label them, you mean?
Color code, yeah, correct, yeah.
Cool. Sweet. So you
Color code correct.
yeah, color code correctly. So you're just gonna right click the clip and just go here to label. And then you have all these different options, right? And so you can label anything that you want. You can also label things inside of your bins here. This is actually a great question for anyone on the Premiere team, because this is, if you label this clip here, let's say, and we right click, we want to label all of our iPhone footage here yellow, and then I drag it to the timeline, then it's yellow. Okay. But if I label it, yellow is actually not a good color because I've already labeled it yellow. So let's try a different one. Let's just pick mango, and then I drag it. You'll see that it actually is labeled mango. So it's helpful to label it inside of your bin first. But if I label it afterwards, you can see that like because I labeled it yellow here, it didn't actually label it yellow in the bin. So you almost have to imagine that if you want everything to be like succinctly labeled in your bin and then your timeline, you would want to start it here in your bins. And then that way on your timeline, it looks consistent. Was that
Yeah.
more confusing, or does that make sense?
No, I think it makes sense. And
Okay.
yeah, Michelle is there. Thank you so much.
You got it.
And she also uses Bridge quite a lot with
Oh yeah. Yeah. Bridge is a
editing.
great way
Yeah.
to do that. All right. This is a really cool clip here. And really just what I'm trying to do is find a clip that has a good speed to it, and we can adjust the speed of this right here. So I'm going to play. I like this because there's birds flying along the cliff. So you can imagine your epic sound design with some like, oh, that's an awful bird call, but you know, you get what I'm going at. So we can build sound design on that as well. Okay, let's say I wanted to maybe speed this clip up a little bit more. Again, we have to be kind of careful with it because it's a waterfall. So it would be pretty obvious that the waterfall is going faster than it's supposed to. Like it already looks pretty fast. But if I wanted to speed this up even more, Command R is my shortcut. If you don't have a shortcut set up, right click and just go speed duration. And inside of your speed duration, there's a couple really amazing features. You can reverse the speed, so you can flip things back. I tend to do this a lot when I'm trying to match clips, like clips. So if I'm moving into a clip and the other clip is moving out, I might reverse that second clip. So I'm moving into both of them. And then our speed we can adjust, and then duration. So there's a lot we can do in here. If I just go like 300%, now our clip has gotten shorter and we've sped it up. But because of that, you can see that the water and the waterfall look a little awkward. So we're just going to go back to like, let's just do 150. All right. Command
I think
S.
that's an awesome tip because you always need to keep your eyes also what's going on in your content in details.
Yeah. Sometimes I forget. Like sometimes I'll send a cut and someone's like, why is that person walking backwards? And I'm like, oh, right. I can't really reverse that one. All right. So what I'm trying to do here, just from a theory standpoint, and again, there is zero right answer to this. This is again just my process, but I think it's good to mention. What I'm trying to do here is have like 3 drone clips kick us off and then go into the iPhone clips and sort of a more montagey thing. So there's no just like, I'm not just like haphazardly throwing clips that look good. And what I want to do is I want each of those clips to feel distinctly different from one another so that they have a different like angle. So we have our first clip here. I'm going to mute this, which is sort of coming out of the cliff here with this really cool waterfall. This clip here is different. So you're zooming into the waterfall. I think that's just a good thing to keep in mind with composition in general. And then what I'm going to do is cut this. So let's just play this. Okay. And I'm going to cut it around there. I think it's lived its time. And then we're going to drag this. Oh, and to cut this, Command K is the shortcut here. So Command K will cut your clip, delete it, hover on that and press delete, and it closes the clip up. So like 2 very easy steps. All right. So we're going to cut that. And then the reason I like this clip is now we have a top down shot So there's variety. Like you're giving the viewer a lot of different things to look at in a 5-second window. And I think that's really important to remember, regardless of the platform it's going on, regardless of people's attention span. Someone's going to get bored if every single drone clip is a top-down shot of the exact same landscape or different landscape, unless that's deliberate. You know what I mean?
Yeah, amazing tip. I think like what they're suggesting is no more than 2 seconds within the same um point of view, or just to add a variation.
Yeah.
So it's a great idea just to think about different angles rather than subjects.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let's say, I mean, like this could even be tighter right now. So let's say I wanted to tighten this so we get into more of it quickly. So what I might do is just go like right here. I'm going to press M on my keyboard, and M is going to create a marker. Okay. And the markers are really helpful for like clipping a specific clip to the track that you want to time it to. Right. We're going to press B on our keyboard and drag this in. And B is a ripple edit. So basically, what I did there, if you go over here to your ripple edit tool, if I press V, V is just my regular selection tool. And if I drag that over, now I'm left with this gap. Totally fine. You just press delete and you close it. Okay. But the more layers you start to add to your project, it becomes a lot more unruly to do that without affecting all of your tracks below it. So the ripple edit tool allows you to now take this and drag it, and the clip after it is going to move with it. And so now it's just basically one step instead of two steps.
Amazing. I want to have to ask a question. Between the bird noise and the little beat that you dropped before, are you into music?
I love music. Yes, I really do. I feel like I'm listening to music just about every day. And I also really have a passion for the sound design portion of my process. It's one of the things that when I finish a travel film and I get to the sound design part, I am so giddy and excited. I don't know why that is. I just think it adds.
Oh, you can tell. That's
Yeah.
why like that question came up, because you were like, you're literally on the music, and it's definitely the music guiding your editing project, which is exciting.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I think this one here, I made this. This was actually an Instagram reel that I made, and I started with the same clip. And this is no music. This is just sound design. So no track at all, but the sound, like the diegetic sound that was incorporated, feels like music. So I think there's a really magical thing that happens when you can do both well and then balance the music. I know that's definitely something I want to talk about and show a little bit today, given our timing.
Super
So,
exciting. And I love the way like the sound also changed the perspective with the video.
oh,
Super cool.
absolutely. It really does.
Super.
All right. So we're just going to shorten this a little bit. We're going to keep on moving here. All right. So, all right, cool. So now we're into the video. We're at about 3 seconds. Now, let's play this part. So this is where there's a bit of a shift. So what if I actually, rather than going through all this, because it is for a reel, what if I use this remix tool that we were talking about before? Okay, and so the remix tool, so powerful. Love this tool. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it works better than other times. Adobe Audition used to be the place that you would have to do this, and all you're doing with the remix tool is you're shortening this track. So the whole track right now is like well over 4.5 minutes long. We do not need all that music, especially for something that's probably going to be 10 seconds, 15 seconds long. And in the past, traditionally, we'd have to go through this, find the place we liked, cut it, mash them together. It was kind of a nightmare, but we as editors did it for a long time. Now, what if I want to just take this track and just cut it to 20 seconds right off the bat? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go 20 seconds in my time code. I'm just going to imagine that this is sort of where we want to be. I'm going to press a marker here, and that's going to allow me to see where I want to have this track go. Again, if you don't see the remix tool, it's at the bottom of the ripple edit tool. Click that, go to the end of your music, and then drag it all the way in till it snaps to wherever that mark is that you set. Okay. And then you're just going to watch Adobe do its magic in the background. So if we just play this back, it's going to shift and change the dynamic of the track, but it's ultimately going to give us just 20 seconds of this music. So let's just see how it sounds. So again, like work sometimes doesn't work that well this time because it just rushes really quickly into the crescendo or the climax of what we're looking for, I think too fast. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to maybe double that. And I'm going to take this down to somewhere around like maybe 40 seconds. And I'm just going to see if maybe it gives us enough of a room. It doesn't work perfectly all the time. I think that's the key here. We're talking about Firefly. We're talking about, Adobe AI and how the tools help to make our lives a little bit easier, but it's not an automatic every single time. There's still the human component that we have to make sure we're giving love
Totally.
to.
We always have to evaluate what the result is. Although we're already saving time because we're just at the point where we're just like making choices.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we'll play this back. Cool. I like that because now we have a little bit of like, there's more progression. And I might cut it there. Cut it here. Because I know that in here, so you can kind of hear that little blip there. What I'm going to try to do is just fix this here. And then that way we can kind of hide the cut. That kind of works for now. We'll just apply a little cross dissolve and then maybe come back to that. You would never really even know.
Absolutely. Sounds amazing. So I love that like you're doing all these with the music first in order to make sure that you got the right length, and you can already almost like envision in your mind the clips they're gonna go on with it with the music as well.
Yeah, and again that's sort of just a process thing. There's certain projects where the music comes after. There's other projects in this case where I think the music should come first and then dictate the mood, the pacing. Because for this, we're just sort of having fun adding clips. It's not really like a huge story. It's more of a recap video. So I like this clip here. I'm going to go Command L, and that removes my audio track. And I'm just going to drag this down. So now we're starting to build our. Okay, so one thing I actually want to talk about, this is a good little tip, is called something called warp stabilizer. Okay, so Claudia, are you familiar with warp stabilizer?
I've used it before, but before we get started, I also want to note to you that even stuff like adding like crossfade, if you can show that as well.
Oh, sure.
I think that there was a few questions in the chat before we
Absolutely.
dive into more complex.
Yeah. No, please. I'm glad you're keeping me honest because these are things that are sort of automatic to my workflow that I forget.
I know, that's why I thought I need to like find a way to like once you have a little break to show, because they're so useful and please, cool. Let's go ahead and.
All right, so I'm just going to drag this up just to give us a little bit more room to work with. So you can see here in between the clips, we have this little line. Okay, so you can really tell that it's going to be a little bit of a pain because you're going to hear that little like, it's muted. You're going to hear this. You can hear that in the stream. So all I'm going to do to fix that is right click it, apply default transition, and that's going to create this like constant power. So it's a cross dissolve, but I don't want it to be the whole length. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag this in a little bit, and this is just going to adjust the duration of that dissolve. I mean, you can go crazy with it and drag it all the way out. It's really, really helpful for like fading in and out music that you want really subtle. But for this case, all I'm trying to do is really make this gap not too noticeable. Okay, so that's all I'm doing there.
Right, thank you. I think Jerry was the one asking the question. I say, got it. Thank you. So thank you, James.
Yeah, sure. And let's go into another tip. So tips with James on Adobe Live. Let's do it. So Warp Stabilizer is a tool that's super helpful. Again, doesn't work the way you want it to all the time, but it does do a pretty good job. And the reason I want to do that is we went from this really nice, like stabilized drone footage. And I like this clip a lot, but it's really kind of shaky, right? Like I was handheld and I knew in my head, I'm going to try to stabilize this in post. So what we're going to do here, so we're going to go into our effects down here at the bottom. We're going to just type warp stabilizer. That's how you have to say it. Warp stabilizer. All right. And you're going to notice that depending on what kind of machine you're on, it goes pretty fast. Like it actually did it so fast, I didn't even have time to talk about it. So up here is my warp stabilizer. Let me do it one more time. You drag this on and it'll automatically start stabilizing the clip to about 50%. So you drag it on, we're going to look up here in our effects controls, and now it's stabilized. Okay, so you have your smoothness, you have smooth motion. The first thing I do is play it back to see how good of a job it did. Wow.
Amazing.
That looks pretty awesome.
I used it because when I was recording a course, I had some issue with lighting. I think there was too much contrast between the light in front of me and the background, so it just the focus kept moving, even if the camera was on a tripod. And it did help me a lot, and I didn't have to reshoot because of that. So
it is a really powerful tool, and I will say, like, it does work most of the time when there's not a subject like cutting the frame or coming in front of the frame. I think the reason it worked so well here is because there was nothing in front of the frame that was distracting the software to analyze the background. So for you, Claudia, like in that situation, it probably worked because there wasn't too much going on. But I've had issues where if someone's crossing the frame, it's a little bit of a problem. And a lot of the times you'll get sort of this like wonky warping around the edges. And to fix that, what I'll do is rather than 50% smoothness, I might only do like 10% smoothness. So It just gives you a little bit of smoothness, but it's not so overly smooth.
Yeah, because I think like the software will be like, what is moving, what is not moving.
Exactly.
Gets a bit twisted on that. And I'm gonna have to say that we have less than half an hour, which is incredible. So time goes so fast. I want to just do a really, really quick recap of where we're at. We're here with James Bonanno. We're working on Premiere, and James is showing us his amazing technique and workflow in the way he edits, organizes his Premiere files and his footage, edits it, add music. And I have a question about sourcing music as well in a second, James. And then I know that we're going to jump into Photoshop beta as well in just a second, and we're creating this engaging Instagram reel, and it just amazing workflow. I'm here taking notes myself. Everybody's excited. We had looked at some lovely puffin, and we're celebrating pretty much your trip in Iceland and the amazing footage that came out of your wonderful trip.
Yeah, it was a blast, and thank you. I'm glad to share some of this. And again, I think sometimes the full edit can go a little bit quicker if I've actually cut it and we're just recounting it. But on this stream, I really wanted to be editing this with you all at home sort of for the first time. So there is really no chance we're going to finish this edit today, but we're trying to hit all the tips that I can give along the way. So I think in the last, 15 minutes we have here, 20 minutes we have, what I'd like to do is color grade this clip because I think this is a good one to show. I want to hop into Photoshop and just quickly show the generative fill feature of maybe like a stock clip. And then I want to talk quickly about sound design. And Claudia, I'll show you sort of how I source music. And I have a feeling that's going to take us right to the end. So, all right. So someone asked about color correction. Here we are. Again, if you go up to the workspaces, previously we were in our editing tab. This, you can color correct everything at the end of the project. I like to do that just because it ends up giving you more to render. And unless you're solid on the exact clip that you want, it's best to do this at the end of the workflow. So I go into color, okay? Click the clip, and then you're gonna go up to your Lumetri scopes, all right? And so I'm not gonna go into super detail about what these scopes are, but I do need to mention them so that if you're doing this for the first time, you're not like, oh my God, what am I looking at? This is very confusing. So these are basically like your histograms and your scopes. So the left scope here is telling you your highlights and your shadows. So your whites and your blacks. So right now we're hovering somewhere in the middle. And to show you, if I adjusted the exposure of this clip, you'll notice that on the right-hand side, the clip is in fact getting darker, and there's still information in that. So until I go all the way, like even if I took this clip to 0 or -5, there's still information here. I'd have to take the highlights down, and then I'd have to take the blacks all the way down, and then you lose and clip those blacks. So I'm going to go Command Z. If I come all the way up, same thing. When the line is a solid line at 100, you've lost all information in those highlights. So the goal with color correcting any clip is to ensure that you're within those boundaries, within that like 90 up here and 10%. Okay. And what that'll do is it allows you to expand that image and provide contrast and add the saturation and really like add the elements that make up a really solid, colorful video. Okay, so to start, what I like to do is I just go through and I kind of try to balance out the whites and the blacks. Okay, so for black, I'm going to go here. I'm going to take this black down just to like right around where it clips to like -45. This allows me to add some contrast. So if I just turn this on and off, you can see that now there's contrast inside of these loop in here more than there was before. Okay. So if I go into curves, we're going to stay in basic correction for a second here. I don't want to really do too much to the highlights. We'll bring that up a little bit. Exposure could come up a hair. And then what I'm referencing on the right-hand side is sort of my RGB color wheel. And this allows me to see the saturation of all of those, color values. And it allows me to make sure that the color is well balanced in between the magentas and the greens and the teals. So for instance, if I was going to drag this and warm it up, you'll notice that little bubble moves all the way to the reds and yellows. Obviously, we're looking at this and it looks really golden or yellow, but these scopes are really what you want to reference because sometimes our eyes can be a little bit deceiving in terms of color correcting. All right, so it's in a pretty good place, honestly. I think what I might want to do is add some saturation to it. Again, we shot this flat. So I'm going to go in here and press 150. And in saturating that image, you'll notice that it expanded this little guy right here. Okay, so I'm going to saturate that even more. And that, to me, already looks better than what it was before. We got some more color in the greens. We got some more color in the reds. I'm going to take the blacks down a little bit more. I'm going to then go down into my curves panel. And this is when I like to add a little bit more contrast. Curves, we could spend an entire stream on just in itself. But basically what I'm doing is I'm adding highlights and I'm crushing the shadows to add a little bit more contrast. And I'm making sure in using this scope here that I'm not going below this 0 mark because then the blacks are going to be crushed. There's going to be no information in it. And I think I have a little bit more room to play with in the highlights, but we'll leave that as is. And then maybe I want to take the hue of this green and maybe change that a little bit, maybe the saturation. So inside of this hue and saturation curves window, I can click this little eyedropper tool. I can come over here, select that green leaf, and now I've had these 3 points created. And if I drag this, you'll see that what it's doing is it's just affecting that green. Okay, so I like to actually kind of live the greens more in like the yellows. So we bring that up. So before and after, very subtle. And then we're just going to take the red roof and I'm going to saturate that. I want to make that a little bit brighter. We're going to add a point, bring that
Pictures
up.
coming to life.
So it's starting to come to life. So if we just go to the top here, we go to our effects controls.
And we have some question as well.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of like compiling them up.
Yeah.
So we have, first of all, Mohammed asking if there is any content aware fill in Premiere Pro. And
that I don't believe exists.
No.
Yet.
Content aware fill is a workspace that is contextual to Photoshop and allow us to reference pixel in the image, make a selection, and then substitute the pixel that we reference. Then we have a question from Paco saying, since this was shot in log, I'm curious to know why James doesn't use a Rec 709 LUT first first and then color correct. That's
a great question, Paco. I think honestly, there's just a lot of different ways to color grade. I will do that a lot more often than the way I'm doing this right now. And I can show you really quickly how I do that. So basically,
and also you can break it down for us not photographers.
Yes.
So I'm not even sure I read it correctly.
So a LUT, for those that are new to color correcting, is called a lookup table. So if you're familiar with presets in Lightroom and color grading in Photoshop, a LUT is essentially a preset for video. Okay, so if you look over here, if you didn't want to color correct anything, color correct and color grade are different. Color correction is to make sure that your values are balanced properly. So what I'm doing right now is pretty much just color correction. I'm making sure that the exposure is right, the shadows look good, the highlights look good, everything is like ready for a color grade, which is where you might put a LUT on, a lookup table. So inside of Premiere, inside of this creative tab, all of these just exist inside of Premiere Pro without you having to do anything. So you have some from Kodak. So if I start clicking around, you'll notice that this actually adds like a nice little contrasty look to it. It gives just a little like teal. It gives this style. Okay. So if we keep clicking around, you can start to see things changing. Okay. And so that's essentially a LUT. The LUT is the style. What Paco's asking, Rec 709 is the color space. So basically, what you could do is rather than coming in here to do the color correction, what I can do is turn this off for now. And I'm going to reveal this clip inside of my project. And there's this really great feature inside of Premiere before you even get into your color correction. So if you wanted to watch your timeline back with a properly graded clip before you color grade it, what you could do is right click here. This is a little confusing for some of the beginners, but I think it's important to talk about. You go to modify, interpret footage. And if you go down to the bottom where it says color management, so it says use media color space from the file Rec 709, or you can go to color space override, which is sometimes what I like to do if I know the type of log footage I shot. So in this case, I shot my Canon C70 with a C-Log3 color profile. So Premiere automatically gives you these options. So you can say C-Log2, C-Log3. If you shot on a Sony, you'd have S-Log, S-Log2, and then you have all these different rec specs. So I'm going to go C-Log3 and press OK. And basically what that did is it already graded the footage for me. Okay, so this is not my grade that I just created. And what this allows me to do is just start from a place where the footage already looks in the color space that I recorded in. And then on top of that, what we can do is start to create our own custom LUTs and
so
build
you just have to
style.
minimally to taste, just edit it after will.
Yeah, exactly. Amazing. There's a lot of ways to color correct that I'm now starting to get more involved in outside of doing just this process, but you can color grade using adjustment layers rather than just editing the clip. So if you wanted to grade all 3 of these clips at the same time, rather than grading each individual one, what you would do is come in here, right click your bin, add an adjustment layer, press OK, and then drag that adjustment layer on top of these clips. And then what I would do, let's just add a LUT for just the sake of argument here, and see which we like. Not sure what's happening there.
Paco saying very well explained. I completely agree. I think you made it really, really clear, and it's good to know, even for beginners. Those are like really, really important information, and not to be afraid to open this panel and read. And to be fair, I'm a beginner myself in Premiere Pro. I just know my workflow, but what I tend to do in my spare time, I just break it. I just mess around. I just press button and make mistakes. So it's glad, actually, I'm really happy to know, from you,
it's
some organized thoughts about the buttons that are randomly clicked.
That is such good advice, Claudia. I feel like don't be afraid to break the program. Like, you're never going to break the program. You're just going to learn in the process. And that's the only way that you really end up learning, is by failing and doing it again. And I mean, I've been using Premiere for 10, 15 years. So I still figure things out from other creatives and people asking questions and pushing me to do something in a different way. And that's the only way that we evolve and kind of get better at what we're doing. So I completely agree.
And people are loving it. And Mohammed is requesting a full video on color grading. Yeah, probably need like an hour. I'm sure you can go over and expand on color grading for an hour. Talking about time, we got about 10 minutes.
Cool. All right. So
12 minutes.
Let's do this.
I want to jump in Photoshop and
yes.
I don't know.
Yes, let's do that. Let's hop into Photoshop real quick, because this is really cool. And I want to show this to anyone who doesn't know. Okay. So Firefly and Adobe, AI, and Generative Fill has been a term and a tool that has just been blowing people's minds inside of Photoshop. And while it doesn't exist yet inside of Premiere, and there are some other sort of Firefly tools, I wanted to show how to use Photoshop and the Generative Fill tool for video if you need it. Okay, so let's say we're done with our video, but we're like, oh man, I really wish I had a solid drone shot from Iceland that was not moving, right? Because what I'd like to do is fill the sides. And what Generative Fill does is it allows you to actually fill a whole scene with vertical, like if you have vertical video, which we're going to start with here. So I'm going to open up Photoshop and I'm going to go import image. This is a clip that I downloaded from Adobe stock. So here's one right here, and here is 2 right here. And I'm going to go with number 2 for this specific example. And the reason why is because you can tell that this shot is not moving. It's a very stable shot. It looks like someone shot this on a cliff. Really beautiful shot, in my opinion. And it's maybe a clip that I can use for this reel that feels like I shot it, but we can kind of do it in someone else's style. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place this inside of my 4K Photoshop sequence. So I did that here. I've already set this sequence up for time's sake. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag this out. Okay. And we're going to commit this to the center of the frame and press commit. And again, I think I mentioned it, but this is Photoshop beta. This is not in the public Photoshop version just yet. I believe it will probably at the end of the year. I am not totally sure, but if you have Creative Cloud, you can very easily download the beta version. Okay, so like, James, what are we doing? Why are we editing video inside of Photoshop? You were just in Premiere. What happened? Okay, so the reason I want to do this, let's say we want to take this clip and post this as a native 16:9 video, but we downloaded this from Adobe Stock as a vertical video. It's like, oh man, I just wish there was more information. I wish we can't even scale it because there's not enough information there. Well, that's where this power of generative fill comes into play. Okay, so you're going to come up here to the left-hand side of your toolbar, click the rectangular marquee tool. I have all these guides on, not exactly sure why, but they're there. Okay, we're going to drag this out and we're going to just kind of like place this marquee tool slightly over this middle clip. And then we're going to press shift and we're going to do the same thing on the other side. All right. And I know there are people in the chat that have seen this. For those that haven't, just get ready for like the most mind-blowing thing you've ever seen. You're just going to be like, oh, James, we don't need you back on the stream. We have generative fill. All right. So we're going to press generative fill. And there's times when doing edits where you can actually like have them add different things and generate certain things in Photoshop. We don't want to do any of that. We just want them to fill the space with what they think this scene would have looked like if it was shot in 16:9 format. So we're going to press generate. You're just going to give it like a couple seconds, maybe 10 seconds to generate. And then we're going to have something that may work, may not work. We'll see. I hope.
By the way, Mohammed is saying generative fill is my love.
Yeah, Mohammed, I'm with you. Okay, so like that
Check this out.
That is ridiculous. So if we go on and off, here is what we started with no information on either side of this clip. We turn it on, and this is what it has done. And I'm going to play this back here at the bottom. And the reason this clip works so well and it looks like it's all one video, again, is because we're not moving the clip. Okay, so I'm going to drag this out a little bit more. And what you can see is on the right-hand side, Photoshop Generative Fill has given us a couple variations. So we have some that look like this looks really epic, but it doesn't look as cool as I think maybe this one. I like this one because the mountain right here coming down the right-hand side, it just gives it a really cool look.
Mind-blowing.
And now if I play this back, now we have a 16:9 video that once started as 9:16 that we can use and bring back into Premiere. So
my mind is exploding.
Me too. I will do this for fun, just to be like, oh, I found a clip that looks cool. Let's just expand it. So generative fill, if you haven't tried it, get in there and try it. And again, like this is the way that you would incorporate it into your video workflow. It's not really as prevalent inside of Premiere Pro, but what you could do is then export this file as an MP4 file and bring that back into Premiere and just edit this clip as you would any other clip inside of Premiere.
Amazing. So Mohammed is saying, besides his love for generative fill, also sharing some love to Aaron Nace, another amazing instructor here on Adobe Live often, and saying, normally I watch Adobe Live I don't watch Adobe Live except for Aaron Nace, but this live is so cool. Well, first of all, shout out to Aaron. Ciao, Aaron. Aaron is amazing. Aaron. But really also here, James and so many other people, Mohammed, you want to really tune in here on Adobe Live, because the beauty of Adobe Live is that you see so many different talented creatives doing their thing. And I think, as you can see from this wonderful stream here with James, you'll be amazed.
Yeah, it's so cool to hear that, Mohammed. And I still learn so much. I mean, I've been learning from Aaron since I was a wee little tyke. You know, he's such a great guy and has just taught us so much. And so I hope to be able to share, you know, hopefully this sort of forum helps to share my knowledge. And again, like I continue to learn from everyone else. So Claudia, I know we only have a couple minutes. I just wanted to really, really briefly talk about sound design, which I know we're not going to have time for, but I think it's worth mentioning. So if we are,
please let us know where you get all these beautiful tracks.
Cool. There's a couple places. So My primary location, I actually have these pulled up, is a site called artlist.io. Artlist is a subscription-based service. So it's like a monthly service that you would pay for. And you'd have access to their full library of not only music, but you have sound effects as well. So this is a great option. And then there's Epidemic Sound, which is another option. So I kind of tend to lean towards both depending on the project. And in here, you have more music than sound effects. So I sort of lean towards creating my own sound effects or leveraging the library inside of Artlist. And if you don't want to deal with either of those, there is a great tool inside of Premiere Pro. So if I go to my workspaces here, just like we've been kind of bouncing around on our edit, on our assembly, learning, all those things, I'm going to go into my audio panel. Okay. And there was a couple things I wanted to show. Probably won't have time, but basically right here is we have a whole library of music that already exists inside of Premiere's Creative Suite. And that's a partnership that I believe they have with Epidemic Sound. And all you have to do, so let's say we want to just find a song right from here. That's kind of cool. I mean, not really the vibe we're going for, but it is pretty sweet. So all I would do is say add to project, and I'm going to add this to the, what am I doing here? Oh, save to library.
And is this all integrated within Premiere already?
Yep. This is all default. This all exists inside of Premiere already by default. So what you'll notice, I'm going to do that one more time. If you like this song, rather than having to leave Premiere and go to Artlist, all you do is drag this in the same way you would with our previous audio. And you'll notice that up here in our edit bin, there's now just a stock audio media folder. So what I would do is I could just pull this out and then I would just drag it back into my audio. And now I have music and you'll see the little cart next to it. So you'll know that that's where you sourced it from. Okay, so that's one option. And I also believe they do have some sound effects in here. So I'm just going to type in like waterfalls. Whoops. Maybe they do.
That's a disco waterfall.
Yeah, I don't know if they do.
And I have a question as well while you look for it. Do you ever use Adobe Podcast for your audio?
No, I do not actually. The only time I've used it was to run like dialogue through it because it apparently it has a nice like dialogue enhancer feature to it. But yeah, Claudia, if you can kind of share with me a little bit more, share with the chat, I think that would be very helpful.
It's just a beta. I remember seeing a preview on Sneaks, Adobe Max many years ago, probably 4 or 5 years ago, the last one before COVID. And you literally can upload your MP3 or WAV file, and then in a few seconds, they give it back to you all cleaned up. It doesn't work all the time, but I would say it works good 80-90% of the time, and the audio is so much clean and crisp. Like it gets rid of all noises. I had my cat messing around with like paper on the floor. I had something in the garden that just fell out while I was talking, and again I didn't have time to record a full clip, just whack it in there and it came back clean. So it's a beta, but everybody can access it. I believe the link is podcast.adobe.com, and then you simply go in quick tools, and the tool that I'm talking about is the enhance speech.
Okay, so, podcast.
Pretty dope.
Well, I'll definitely have to check that out. I feel like this stream, just every time we talk about it going by too fast, and I feel like I didn't get anything done today, but at least it was fun. Hopefully.
Oh no, trust me, everybody absolutely love it. There's been so many gems, so many tips. We went from complete beginner to pro tips, and we got a glimpse of your workflow, and it's just amazing. And seeing your footage as well, so inspiring, the way you work with music. We literally have 2 minutes. If you want to take 1 minute before we say goodbye, just to show us like real quick what we've done.
Yeah, we haven't done much. Let's see. Here's what we got done, at least to start. Oops. Let's take that mute off. That's where we're at. So we didn't really end up editing too much.
Oh, well, you showed us how to organize the clip, how to import them, cut them, how to do the pancake editing, how to bring in audio, editing audio. done so much.
Yeah.
You showed us the puffing.
Yeah, we said we got the puffins in here. We did a ton today, which sort of was the intention. I wanted to really have everyone take away some just general tips to really get started, to take those iPhone clips, to take just clips that you've shot that you don't believe are strong enough. They absolutely are, if you know how to sort of piece them together and create the proper meal to share on social media. So it's been a blast being here today, Claudia, and thank you so much for hosting me. This has been wonderful.
Thank you so much, James. And thank you so much to everybody that's been here joining us live. Don't forget that you can watch this stream and get all these amazing tips again on the Adobe Live YouTube channel. And don't forget to stick around because there is the Adobe Firefly weekly meetup with the amazing Woodval and Megan talking about inspiration for illustration. So thank you so much, James. Thank you so much, everybody here to joining Adobe Live. And we'll catch up here very, very soon. Stay tuned for more. Bye.
Bye, guys.